Hi, welcome to Energy Conversations with Rams Logistics. My name is Jamal Allen, the HSE manager. I'm joined today with Mr. Arthur Alexander from BPTT. Arthur, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, great. So, like you said, my name is Arthur Alexander. Just about 11 years with BP, and right now, currently my role is Senior HSE and Carbon Manager at BPTT. What does that mean? So basically, simple answer, all things HSE and carbon related fall within my department. But at the end of the day, my team is responsible for the health, safety, environmental compliance, just all aspects of HSE and carbon that allows BP to have safe, reliable, and compliant operations.
And why the specifics on carbon? What's so special about the carbon segment?
So that's interesting. If you're familiar with BP, and most people are, you'd be familiar with our oil and gas operations. We've made a change recently. It seems recently to me, but in 2020, our then CEO kind of made some aspirations around how we would reinvent BP globally. And one of the ways that we would do that is, the way we reinvent this company to be a net zero company by 2050 or sooner, which means we recognize our importance to deliver energy to the world, but we also want to do that in a way that's sustainable, in a way that's good for the planet, in recognition of the Paris Accord agreements, etc., and commitments to climate change. So for us, it's really around, an and/or strategy. It's not or, but it's and.
Yeah.
It's not giving up oil and gas production to become a renewables company, but it's around that balance. And as we transition, it is an energy transition, how do we provide energy that's safe, affordable, sustainable, and cleaner for the world to come?
Yeah, so we're here at the AmCham conference, and one of the, mottos or one of the themes of the conference right now is learn, empower, sustain. Tell me a little bit more about that net zero initiative for BP and how it falls into that sustainability category.
Yeah, I love this. And first and foremost, let me take the opportunity to applaud AmCham for another successful conference. And it's, the fact that it's 27 conferences, I mean, it's actually worth taking the time to applaud AmCham for doing that.
It only sat in for me last night, 27 years.
Yeah.
We have been going.
More than a quarter decade, right? So, I mean, absolutely, applaud the American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago. I love this theme, right? Learning and learning, empowering, and sustaining. So first, let me hit this from all of those angles. When it comes to carbon and climate change and the energy transition, I think it does require us to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that what got us here in terms of energy production is not going to get us there. And what does there mean? There means a world where we have all the energy that we need, but one where we're not at risk. I mean, the reality is somebody pointed out in the conference, right? We've had some of the hottest days on record in Trinidad and Tobago within a month of today. Flooding is just happening at an astronomical rate. It seems like 2 days of rain and all of a sudden we have a tremendous amount of flooding. So we need to learn. We need to learn how to do what we do in terms of energy production, but we need to learn a way to do it sustainably. So learning is vitally important. Empowerment. What does empowerment mean? It means that we're all part of the solution. It's no longer just senior management or up to the government. I think we need to remove those silos and remove those barriers. We are all empowered. This is our planet. For this generation and for the future generation, we all should feel empowered to be part of that solution.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, sustain, right? We have to sustain the environment. So what does sustainability mean for me? For me, sustainability is around creating the energy that the world needs. You hear me say that time and time again. That's what we do. But it can't be at the detriment for the future generations. I have a 3-year-old, and I want to make sure that my 3-year-old has a life that's just as good as I had, right? I wanted to enjoy the rainforest and the beaches and all the things that the world has to offer. And that's what sustainability is about for me. When I'm long gone, she can sit here and talk about her generation, and she could talk about the generation after that, the generation after that. So we have to do things in a sustainable manner.
Interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about BP's current operations and what's the look ahead like for the near future?
Well, our current operations are really excited, right? As you know, we've been operating here for quite some time. And, our operations is predominantly in the Columbus Basin. So down in the, southeastern side of the island, off the coast there. So basically our operations, we have 4 manned facilities and a number of what we call normally unmanned facilities. And those facilities, produce, just about 50, I think that's the number that we're going with, 50% of the oil and gas production or the gas production on the island, predominantly focused on gas. And we have 2 onshore areas, the Galeota Point, where we manage our liquids, and process over at Beachfield is where we process our gas. So if you look at it from the perspective of, just to simplify it, we have a number of platforms on the southeastern side of the island producing gas, what we call the Columbus Basin, and then they route into 2 onshore assets, and then those feed downstream markets, mostly over to Atlantic, where Atlantic liquefies that gas, and it goes out to markets, and then we also provide gas through the National Gas Company to the Point Lisas estate.
Yeah. So with all the doom and gloom you would have heard in past years about our energy sector and how its future is looking, right now it's looking promising for BP based on what you're saying.
Yeah, I think the realities are we have to be aware that the Columbus Basin is aging, right? I mean, we've been operating in that basin for some time, and it is aging. We at BP, we do see a future, by 2030, where we will be doing, or plans or strategic plans initiatives to produce about 2 BCF of gas. But that's going to take work. That's not going to happen by itself. Our head of country, David Campbell, always says that's where we're aspiring to, but it's not just going to happen on its own. There's a lot of work that we have to do in that space. One, we have to maximize the Columbus Basin. Secondly, we do need to transition to deeper waters. I'm really excited about the joint venture that we're currently embarking in with Shell Trinidad and Tobago, with regards to recently cabinet approved blocks. There are 3 blocks that were recently approved by cabinet, and those are in deeper waters. We need to progress those, and we absolutely, need to produce those as well to get to that future. And then let me not also leave out another joint venture that we're engaged with Woodside called Calypso. So I think there's a lot to play for. The Columbus Basin, like I said, is aging, so we need to transition. And again, I'll use some terminology that David talks about, right? The natural progression of this industry is you start on land, you go to the shallow water, then you progress to the deep water. We're making that progression right now with a lot of support from other players in the oil and gas industry, and of course, heavily supported by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So I think as we maximize the basin, as we mature the basin, it's really about taking that next step, that next leap, and that's going to really sustain the energy future for Trinidad.
Yeah, and you're speaking a lot about all these projects, and it just brings to my mind the amount of work opportunities for us Trinbagonians that you talk about that pride. Yeah. What's your thoughts or BP stance right now on the local content around all this work that's upcoming?
Yeah, I mean, again, as a proud Trinbagonian, and I'm really proud of what BP is doing in that space. I think every time we get into new ventures, every time we expand, every time we bring on more gas or bring on more facilities, there's opportunity to increase revenue. And with increased revenue, of course, job creation comes with that. We're really proud. We're really proud of the amount of locals in our operations. Yes, we're an international oil and gas company, but essentially we're run by citizens of this country, right? Yeah. That's really exciting. I mean, I sit on a leadership team that is full of individuals from Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, we have a couple expatriates on there or folks from other nations, but when you look through our organization is really run by Trinbagonians, and that's really exciting. And we take really a lot of pride in the fact that, we generate income for the island, and with that generation of income, with that growth in the economy, comes opportunity for more employment. So whether it's, marine operations that supports oil and gas, or as we transition, like I said, from the Columbus Basin into deep water, those are going to be large assets that will be brought on. And of course, we need expertise in that space. And it's growing expertise. It's new expertise. So people will have to learn new skills, and we're excited to be part of that.
And how has BP played a role in upskilling persons in these new areas of business that we have planning to endeavor in?
Yeah, I mean, so upskilling happens first within our own ranks. One of the things that we talk about is really new and exciting tools, digital tools to grow the capability of our workforce, right? There's actually, I know somebody's not going to be happy about me saying this, right? But we have an internal tool that's often described as the Netflix of learning. And that's really exciting because the more you get into it and the more you kind of, label your favorites and the more content you consume, it actually starts kind of predicting other things. So you start building more and more and more capability. It's something that I spend some time with, and I think now I'm doing a pathway about, sustainable strategization and stuff like that. So it's really exciting stuff. And we're plugged into various vendors that kind of feed content to us. So that's for our employees. But beyond our employees, we're also working with our contractors and trying to find ways for our contractors to address the needs of the market and working with them. And we're very happy to share anything in that space, whether it's in the renewables aspect or even in oil and gas operations. We're really happy to support any of our contractors to build competency and skill sets. Because the reality is that the more that we could, let me say it this way, it's good for all business. It's good for local business. Yes. It's also good for our business. Instead of going out to market to international companies to bring that competency in, if that competency is delivered here in Trinidad, the reality is you don't have to pay mobilization fees and expenses and that type of thing. So I think, it's a win-win across the board where local capabilities continue to build, and we absolutely support that as a company.
Nice. Now, coming back now to the conference itself.
Yep.
How have you been enjoying it?
It's been a great conference. I've learned a lot. I mean, the opening was once fantastic. Having Her Excellency Candace Bourne, the U.S. Ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, giving the feature address. I really enjoyed her feature address. Title sponsor Atlantic and Ron Adams as the CEO. He's such a font of knowledge and a wealth of information from him. So hearing his address, I took a lot of notes around that, and his whole panel discussion around leadership and the role of leadership, and something that we've been talking in BP about, but that seems to be the theme of day one here, which is bridging the gap between work as imagined and work delivered. I think it's something that we've been talking about in BP. It's great to hear the perspective of individuals outside of BP in that space. So again, exciting stuff in this conference. I've learned a lot, and hoping to learn more on day two.
Yeah, because I was now going to ask you the same thing about work as imagined versus work as being done.
Yeah, sure.
What's BP's take on that?
Thanks for asking it. It's something that we've been talking about, and we've recognized, when you sit in an office and you dream up a process. Yes. Sometimes you just go, okay, yep, process is well laid out, well thought. We've trained individuals, they're doing it exactly the way that we thought it would work. Then you go into the field. Yeah. And then there's a whole different world, right? And I have to quote one of our employees who made a statement once. I'm going to make him famous by this. He said, sometimes there are air-conditioned ideas for hot sun work. And I can't think of a more articulate way to talk about work imagined versus work as it's actually done. And I think those of us who sit in the office, we have to realize that the work is delivered out in the field. And it's always important for us to take that in mind when we design the work, but also as we improve it. So it's important for us to go out into the field, understand the perspective of the individuals. Then that's when you start designing. And then even when you implement those solutions, it doesn't stop with training. It's actually beyond training. What's actually happening in the field? Are you getting the business performance that you intended? Are people doing the work as you designed it? Are those flowcharts really working, or are they not working? And if they're not working, my role as a senior leader is to help it to work, remove those barriers, and just ensure that the value is being delivered out there in the field.
Nice. Last question, Arthur.
Sure.
So, had a conversation with Kim Bancroft concerning HOP. Yeah. And I was just wondering, where does BP see itself in that HOP space? Are you there yet as a major oil and gas player, or is it still something you are working and evolving towards?
Yeah. I think, to be honest, we're all working and evolving in that space. It's difficult to say that you have it all licked. Human performance is challenging. It absolutely is challenging, particularly when things go wrong. And I think the reality is where we are in BP, I think we've had the conversation around human performance. I think we have good systems, good tools. Application is the next step. And dare I say, not just application, again, when things go wrong, but where I really want to get involved is proactive application. We need to take human performance into account when we design work.
Yeah.
As opposed to not taking it into account, and then when things go wrong, you're investigating what those human performance gaps are. That's where we are today presently. I think where we need to transition to, where we'd like to get better, is using human performance as we analyze work, as we build procedures, as we build process, as we implement tools. That's when we should take human performance into account and design it into the process such that we don't have issues on the back end. So something that's fascinating is I always say, if HSE is a science, which it is, it's a behavioral human science, and human performance is core to that. So so I'll never declare absolute success in that space. There's absolutely more to be done in BP, and I'd say in the industry. And just one last thing while I have the floor.
Yeah.
I think there's a real opportunity for us in the industry. One of the things that we could take advantage of in Trinidad is how close-knit we are, and leverage from each other and learn from each other. That's absolutely a space that I've been thinking a lot about recently. You look at some of the unfortunate incidents that have happened over the last couple of years, and I think, we could talk about OSH and OSHA and enforcement and all that, but that's on the back end. How do we as an industry learn on the front end? And how do we collectively learn? So in other words, an incident at BP, we'll take every step and measure such that it doesn't happen again in BP. But how powerful would it be if we take an even further step, make sure that incident doesn't happen anywhere on the island of Trinidad and Tobago? And let's even think bigger. What about the Caribbean? What about Suriname? What about Guyana? What about Barbados? Right? So I think we absolutely have the ability to do that. And I think the advantage and the strength is in our close-knit Caribbean culture. Let's use that to our advantage to really eliminate incidents.
Yeah, and when one of the breakout sessions I just came out of, one of your colleagues, sorry I forgot his name, brought up the same thing about having that collaboration. We are a close-knit country. It's a small industry in terms of scale internationally. We can't have those collaborations, and I'm glad that AmCham has championed these sort of initiatives at conferences like these, the HSE committee sharing learnings and, trying to improve HSE across the board, not just in individual organizations.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
It was a pleasure to
Hope
talk to you too.
enjoy the rest of the conference.
I will. Thanks, Jamal.
Take care, man.
Thanks.